Hello and welcome to another episode of Unbox the podcast, The Power of Your Story. I am Sahar Huneidi Palmer, and today we're diving into one of the most transformative tools of personal growth, rewriting your narrative, or as I'd like to call it, rebranding yourself. Every one of us carries a story. It might be about who we are, what we have been through, or what we believe we are capable of. These stories shape how we see ourselves and how we approach our life. But here's the truth. If your story isn't serving you, you've got the power to change it. In this episode, we will explore how to identify disempowering narratives, reframe them into stories of growth, and how to live in alignment with your new identity, your new story, or your new brand. We will, of course, uncover why sharing your story is also essential. It isn't just inspiring for others, but for solidifying your own transformation. And I'll tell you how. So get comfortable and let's begin. The power of your narrative. Let's start by understanding why your narrative matters. The stories you tell yourself are not just words. They are beliefs. They influence your actions, your choices, and even how you respond to challenges. For example, if your story is something like, I am not good at anything, how likely are you to try something new? That belief, I'm not good at anything, might stop you from taking risks or pursuing opportunities, even though it's not a fact. It is the story that you have been telling yourself based on how you perceive the world around you and your past experiences. However, as I often refer to an empowering quotation, the past is a strange country. People there do things differently. Think about that. Here's a real life example. I once worked with a client who believed she was terrible with money. Every time she tried to save or budget or manage her own business, she would tell herself, I'm just not good at this. But what was missing in her case is knowledge. She literally did not know the basics of handling money, like keeping a ledger, tracking her spendings. That lack of facts, the lack of know-how, kept her stuck repeating the same patterns. When we worked together, her new story became, I'm learning how to manage my money and build financial confidence. This simple shift allowed her to take small, empowering actions. Over time. Her confidence and her bank account began to grow. There are reasons why we got stuck, and because we are stuck, we tell ourselves stories, and these stories form unconscious belief system that dictate our actions. Now, I want you to reflect on this. What is one story that you told yourself which might be holding you back right now? Take a moment to reflect on that as we move into the next segment, which is how to identify limiting narratives. The first step in rewriting your narrative is finding out which ones are you currently living by. Often these stories are so ingrained we don't even realize what we're doing. We don't realize that they're there. Here's an exercise. Write your life story in one paragraph. Don't overthink it, just write whatever comes to your mind. Focus on how you describe yourself and your experiences. For example, someone might write, I've always struggled with confidence. I've always struggled with money. I'm not the kind of person who speaks up or takes risks. I usually stay in the background, for example, and let others lead. Write your paragraph, then read it to yourself and see what you can spot. Do you see from the examples previously how it helps people shape their reality? It kept them in a pattern of avoidance and self-doubt. Now let's take this a step further. Once you've written your paragraph, ask yourself, what themes are recurring? Do I focus on my struggles or on my wins, victories, and strengths? Am I using a limited language like always or never? Or is there room for improvement and expansion? This exercise helps you bring your subconscious narrative into the light, where you can begin to work with it. Once you identify the limiting story, you can reframe it. For instance, the person who said, "I'm not the kind of person who speaks up," might reframe their story as, "I'm someone who values observation and reflection. I am learning to step into leadership when the moment feels right. I stand up to my values." Do you feel the difference? It's not about denying the past, but it is about choosing a perspective that empowers you. You could be sometimes doing the right thing, albeit for the wrong reasons, but there's always a reason why you're acting or feeling one way or another. By reframing that narrative, you allow yourself a new you to emerge. Now, let's talk about sharing your story. Rewriting your narrative is a powerful first step. But here's where the magic happens. Sharing your story solidifies your transformation. Why? Because when you begin to share your story, you are reaffirming it to yourself. You are telling your mind, "This is who I am now." In other words, you are re-identifying with yourself. And this is what you might call the rebranding. And as your mind begins to believe it, your actions will naturally start to align with this new story, with this new brand. Let me share a personal experience with you. A few years ago, my late husband and I moved to Dubai. Soon afterwards, my mum came to live with us. At my husband's insistence, she was getting on and need not live alone. And for a few years, we shared a happy life and joyful memories. For me personally, I was somebody's daughter and wife, and my life orbited around both my husband and my mum. But when they both passed away within months of each other, I found it very difficult to identify with who I was, or indeed what was my life about. As I reflected on that while grieving, I had to re-identify with myself in order for my life to move forward again. So, sharing your story also creates ripple effects. It inspires others to build a connection that empowers them to reflect on their own journeys. Here's another example. I once worked with a man who had faced significant career setback. He was hesitant to share his experience, thinking it would make him seem weak. But when he opened up about how he used that setback to pivot and thrive, people around him were deeply inspired. He moved from the corporate world to starting his own business from home, and this all took place during COVID lockdown. His story gave others around him the permission to embrace their own challenges, in fact, to see them as opportunities for growth. Let's talk about why sharing your story might make you feel vulnerable. You might worry about being judged or not knowing how to articulate it. Here are 3 practical tips to help you share authentically. 1. Start small. Share your story with someone you trust, like a friend or a mentor. This builds up your confidence before sharing with a large audience. 2. Focus on the lessons learned. Instead of dwelling on the drama, the trauma, or pain, highlight what you have gained, how you grew out of that experience. And finally, number 3, be real. Don't try to sound perfect. No one is expecting you to be perfect. Very often, we put that pressure on ourselves. Speak from the heart, and your authenticity will resonate with others. You will touch them. You will touch their heart when you speak from your heart. When you share a story, you're not just helping others, you're reinforcing your own transformation. It helps you to build confidence and to step fully into your new narrative. Within the Unbox life mentoring methodology, sharing your story serves as an act of accountability, which is one of the BEMA pillars. It transforms your inner beliefs into external commitment. It helps you create a feedback loop between your mind and actions. Sharing also engages the mind and the emotions. It involves both reframing past challenges and fostering connections with others who affirm your journey. It helps you, in other words, to rebuild your life. In short, sharing is not just about telling others your story. It's about telling yourself your story in a way that transforms your beliefs, heals your emotions, and aligns your action with your new self. It is both a practice of self-empowerment and a tool for change. So, how do you live your new narrative? Now that you've reframed your story and begun sharing it, the next step is living in alignment or in truth with that new brand, that new identity. Here are 3 ways to stay committed to your new brand. Number 1, use daily affirmations. Writing a statement down that reflects your journey. For example, I'm capable of learning and growing every day. This consistent practice rewires your mind to embrace the new identity. Number 2, set aligned goals. Your actions need to match your narrative. For instance, if your story is about building confidence, set small, achievable goals to practice, like speaking up when meeting or starting a conversation. And finally, number 3, celebrate the small wins. Every step forward is a practice. Every step forward is progress. Acknowledge the small victories as they reinforce your belief in a new story that motivates you and keeps you going. Living your new narrative is an ongoing process. It requires attention, effort, and willingness to adjust as you grow. And please remember, transformation isn't about perfection. It is about progress. Rewriting and sharing your story allows you to let go of what no longer serves you, and also to step into a new brand that aligns with your true potential. And now let me ask you, what is one story you are ready to rewrite and share? Take a moment today to reflect on that. Perhaps when you're free, write it down, speak it out loud, or share it with someone you trust. Remember, your story has the power to inspire not just you, but everyone who hears it. Thank you for joining me today on this journey. I'm Sahar Huneidi Palmer, and you've been listening to Unbox the podcast. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and share it with someone who might benefit from it. Until next Tuesday, remember, you're the author of your life. Make it a story worth sharing.